Hey, Acers. Yeah, I didn't wait as long this time. Haha. And as you can see, I've kind of got a little bit of a different setup than what I had before. But that's just because I took my desk and I switched it around to this side of the room. So I went. That's the technical terminology, too. So, anyway, in advance of. Excuse me. Smoke in the air is killing me. Anyway, but in advance of my upcoming FanX experience, where I will not be on just one panel about gaming in the post-COVID world and the evolutions thereof. That's the one I put together. But also, I've been invited to be on a second panel, and that's one called Not Your Grandfather's Games, and it's about, and it'll be earlier on Thursday, but it's about role-playing games that aren't D&D. Now, I love D&D. I've said it before on this channel, and I'll say it again. I love D&D. It is a lot of fun. I've had some of the best hours of my life and best experiences of my life playing the game. And I do not see anything wrong with D&D when that's the experience you want. But I'm going to kind of call out the game organizers on FanX for this. People want to play things other than D&D. I'm going to take to FanX several options of games that I can throw down at any given moment, including I'll be willing to throw down Chickens in the Mist, and maybe even a full-on ETU game. I would like to try, and I'm actually going to write it down now that I'm thinking about it. The Lost Colony. One shot. I think I'd like to throw that one down, maybe. And I haven't read it yet, so maybe Widowmaker or whatever. Just find out the one shots for that. Because, and as you guys know, I am not sponsored by Pinnacle. I might eventually be part of their network. That'd be fun. But even if I'm not, I am loving the Pinnacle stuff. And yeah, you guys have heard me talk about Deadlands before, I think. But if not, let me refresh. Deadlands is Weird West. So it's cowboys and Indians, like we grew up playing. Bang, bang, foop, foop. Although, I strangely always played the cowboy because he had guns. But it was cowboys and Indians. But it's also add in zombies, of course, and ghosts and ghost hunts and evil things that are trying to turn the world into a hideous wasteland. And that's Deadlands in a nutshell. It's pretty cool. There's these, the Civil War went on too long, and finally the North and South remerged, and in the original storyline it didn't. And so there were still two separate countries. And the American Indians got back a big chunk of the North and the South, the Sioux Nations and the Coyote Confederation. And if you're following the old ways like they do there, technology just doesn't work there. And then during the whole kerfuffle, the state of Utah, right here, it broke away and became its own little independent nation, the nation state of Deseret. And Utah's got its own money. Deseret has its own money, it has its own government, and it also has the highest technology in all the world. Second, the next one closest to it is Fort 51. And there's some great adventures. There's one that I'm running. I've been running for a while, and I'm going to keep running it until we finish it. And that's a campaign called Blood Drive. And that's a pretty cool campaign. So there's a lot of good stories to be told with Deadlands. And Deadlands is something you can't do with the rules for Dungeons and Dragons. And then there's fast forward that to 1935 for Deadlands Noir. And that's spelled Noir. It's a French word. It means black. It comes from the idea of film noir, which was black film, meaning black and white, and it usually was dark in content, dark in culture. It was built up from the hard-boiled detective stories and the aptly named noir fiction, which is stuff like James M. Cain and things like that. I love the stuff. Hard-boiled detectives. Those are your Philip Marlowe characters. I'm drawing a blank on his author. Philip Marlowe characters. Some characters by the same guy who wrote Conan the Barbarian. More characters like there's more characters that you are created by, like Ross McDonald, I think that was one of the authors. And there's even some more neo-noir or new noir stuff that's going on. And noir is hard-boiled detective fiction. It happens in a lot of stuff. If it didn't have so much scoodly pooping in it, yes, I say scoodly pooping, I do not apologize for it. That's what I'm going to call it. The book Altered Carbon would be awesome. And they've made a role-playing game about it, but there's a lot of sexual things in there that teens really don't need to be screwing around with. And it's stuff that makes me as a grown-up feel uncomfortable. So I do not recommend you read it or listen to it or watch it on Netflix or anything like that. Don't. But the story is so good. I'm not going to do what I did with Star Wars and what if Star Wars Episode 1 was good, because I wanted to show some game mastering tips through that. But what I will say is that there are role-playing games that kind of come close to that in the feel. And there's a Savage World setting that's very close to it called Nova Praxis, which I got to finish reading up on because I still like the idea of that one. Although I paused on that one so I could read Titan Effect. Titan Effect is one of my favorite settings that anybody has done for Savage Worlds, and that's put out by Knight Errant Media or publishing. And that, I have to say, bravo, gentlemen, well done. It's special operations like Navy SEALs and things like that meets psychics. So you got mind powers, and as you go on my channel, if you hadn't already guessed, I kind of adore psionics. I adore them. I think they are the most fun things in the whole world. That idea of being able to telekinetically move things with your mind, or to be able to read other people's thoughts or communicate without opening your mouth. I loved all those books as a kid. And here's a book you can read called Into the Dream, and it's done by the same guy. I'm gonna pull up. Okay, good. I do have a browser over here. I'm going to look up the name of the author because I'm surprised I'm not pulling his name. I love him. He wrote Into the Dream, Dream Futures of Tycho, and House of Stairs. Those are just books that were seminal to me in my young childhood. Oh gosh, William Slater, that's who it is. And yeah, William Slater, he is awesome. And William Slater is also one of my favorite little stories, because I didn't know anything about William Slater as a person. I loved his books, and when I found out stuff about him as a person, stuff that I don't personally get involved with, I didn't care that was his life. It didn't matter. So who somebody is doesn't matter, as long as what they do is something that gives help and joy and fun to people out there in the world. And that's why I want to help as many of you out there to learn how to game master. I want to have you guys build Ace role-playing game clubs, which incidentally, I have to say, here we go. I set up the Ace Role-Playing Games Clubs LLC this last week. So I now am the owner of a small limited liability corporation, and my company's whole goal is to help you guys, especially teenagers, to set up your own role-playing games clubs in your area. So you can have an Ace Role-Playing Games club in your area. And I will put my email address in the bottom here. And I would love for you to reach out to me, and I will start arranging some evenings during the month where I can give you a couple hours of my time to teach you how to game master. Admittedly, I will be teaching you Savage Worlds. The stuff that there's some general stuff that goes beyond Savage Worlds, but I will teach you how to game master using Savage Worlds, so that if you, and I'm hoping that my corporation can maybe get some money to be able to buy books for your club. I can't make any promises yet, but hey, at $10 a pop, if the clubs generate slow enough, I might, for the PDF, I might just donate it to you. We'll see how that goes. But anyway, back to Deadlands. So you get Deadlands Noir, which is set in like 1935 or 1927 for one of the other cities, or 1955 for like LA. And so there's different time periods. You can play it in San Francisco, which is because the classic settings for noir stories are New Orleans, New York City, Chicago, San Francisco, and Los Angeles, especially during the height of the Hollywood system time period, the 1950s. Again, when you're older, take a look at LA Confidential to get kind of that feel. But as a teen, I highly recommend against you getting involved in that one. So the idea, though, is that your heroes from the Deadlands through Deadlands Noir time periods, they end up defeating these evil beings from what the Indians call the hunting ground. The American Indians call it the hunting ground. And they defeat them, and they win. But just at the last moment, the Reckoners send somebody back in time, and they kill all your heroes. And now, fast forward to where the Reckoners are still making these Deadlands, making these horrible places to be, and they drop ghost rock bombs, which ghost rock is like coal, and it burns hotter and longer, and it makes these eerie shrieking sounds when you burn it. Rah! So anyway, you get these ghost rock bombs that drop. Now, just before the ghost rock, just a few years before the ghost rock bombs were dropped, Hellstrom, who was one of the servitors of one of the Reckoners, he was the one in Salt Lake City who built up all the technology. But anyway, he made a wormhole gate to a faraway galaxy. And lots of people migrated there. And it's another planet kind of like Earth, only instead of American Indians, it's got aliens. Which, admittedly, for a lot of people who feel strongly about it, that's a little easier to handle, a little easier to stomach. When we're just playing to have fun, we're not doing things to hurt people. And as long as you're not in your real life excluding other people because they happen to think, look, feel, sound different than you, or communicate even different than you, as long as you're not excluding them and excluding them from your table, trying to include them as soon as possible, then you're still okay. But don't let anything in a game, your books, or anything in your life poison you to a point where you aren't helping to make the world a better place. That's why we are gaming for good. And that's why we do what we do. So, just to finish up the Deadlands timeline, ghost rock bombs go boom, and they cut off that wormhole. So now we spin off two separate sci-fi settings. One is Deadlands Hell on Earth. And it's the post-apocalyptic setting. It's like just after the ghost rock bombs have gone, and there's some Reckoners still. I think there's still some Reckoners left, but if not, they're all over in Banshee. And that has ghost rock too. Anyway, So there's Banshee, and Banshee is Deadlands Lost Colony, and that was one of the first settings that Pinnacle brought back as soon as they brought Suede in. And of course, Suede is Savage Worlds Adventure Edition. So that is why, that setting is kind of like Mandalorian, kind of like Firefly, if you know that one. It's really a really good thing to play it in. It's kind of a space western. It's a lot of fun, and the great thing is about any of the Pinnacle games or any role playing game in general, you can turn up or turn down the volumes on things. That's why I love what my friend Manny Sims did with his Cyberpunk setting or his Shadowrun setting, depending on which version you go for. And that's called Sprawl Runners, and it's for Savage Worlds. And it's cool because of this. If you turn up the magic, you get Shadowrun, basically. But it's not Shadowrun because we can't call it Shadowrun because Shadowrun is copyrighted to, it was FAFSA years ago. And that's the last version of the book I have. And then Cyberpunk, which is copyrighted to, I think, Artalasaurian still. That's with magic turned off. So you get to decide how much magic is going to be in your world with that. And that's just the cool thing about role-playing games in general. And with Deadlands, if you just want to do a Wild West game and don't want to involve all the supernatural stuff, you don't have to. You, as game masters, are the ones who choose what gets included and what gets excluded. So, make decisions. Intentionally bring settings and things in. And help your players to have a great time. Until next time, this is Mason. We're gaming for good here with Ace Role Playing Games Clubs. Until next time, I'll see you.